had 31 cents left to my name and I was sleeping on my friend's bathroom floor on a pool floaty. I went from 21st to 1st in 5 weeks by understanding some core principles around sales and communication.
How sales isn't just money for a service, it's also day-to-day life.
Sales is a process and can be learned just like engineering. I think firstly it's important to recognize that selling is a dirty word. I used to think it was a dirty word because I only saw it as transactional.
Talk to me about how you've navigated business and success with family and balance.
The only way I've been able to create anything like that is putting systems in place to scale, which also means I've had to let go of my expectations of humans.
Sales is life. It is everywhere, it is everything.
It's just telling your truth better and asking great questions. The best salespeople in the world don't have the best answers, they have.
Ryan Tuckwood has coached over 21,500 businesses, been in 32 countries, and got 3 Shark Tank investors. In today's episode, we break down why sales is the #1 skill you need to not just make loads of money, but to have an amazing marriage, to be a better father, and to be a better leader in your world. If you want to learn about his personal story of success, failure, and ultimately how to have the best life possible, then you're gonna love this week's episode. Make sure you listen till the very end. There's a special surprise there, and I hope you love this episode on how to build wealth personally and professionally. Ryan, you have helped 21,500 businesses globally. You have been in 32 countries and you're backed by 3 Shark Tank investors. Like, that is insane. You've gone from being an engineer to Australia's #1 sales coach. How the hell did you make that happen, man? Like, tell us your story.
Did I make it happen? That's the question. Did I make it happen or did it? I think that if I was being really honest, there's parts of it that happened accidentally through lots of intentional moves. And I know that sounds a little bit of an oxymoron, but my journey wasn't one of entrepreneurship. It certainly wasn't one of salesmanship. I didn't want to be a salesman. I was an engineer for 8 years in the UK. So I was literally on the tools for 12-hour days, 12-hour nights, covered in grease and oil. And I just got to the stage, I think I was 26, 27. I call it my quarter-life crisis, where I'm like, is this it? Is this me? I remember coming home to my ex-girlfriend, been with her for 5 years, amazing woman. We had a house, we had property together, we had a dog, I drove a nice car, Audi TT, and I'd made it to everybody back in the UK, but I wasn't fulfilled. I was achieving, but I wasn't fulfilled, and I'm like, there's got to be something else out there, and I always had this little niggle inside that maybe I should have been born in the sun. And not money, it wasn't business, it was like I just should have been born in the sun, and if I was in the sun I'd be happy. And even as I drove here today I said to you, I feel great, it's the sun's shining. So I moved to Australia in 2010, determined not to fall back into engineering, and then I accidentally fell into cold calling, ultimately a boiler room environment, smashing the phones 300 times a day. Very quickly realized that I was terrible at it. How do you know you're terrible at it? Because they have a scoreboard in most call centers, and I was 21st out of 21 people for the first 3 months straight. So it wasn't just a feeling of being crap, it was documented and promoted to everybody else in the room. And I got 3 months in, and I'd said to my boss that, mate, I can't do this. Sales is not for me. I don't have the gift of the gab. I don't have an ability to let things kind of wash over me. I'm evidently crap, and at the same point I had 31 cents left to my name and I'm sleeping on my friend's bathroom floor on a pool floaty. At that stage, I was genuinely done. I tapped out, and this is really why I'm so passionate about communication, because the conversation I had with him, Jack, that ended up becoming the co-founder of Swish, changed the whole trajectory of my life, because he just looked me dead in the eyes the morning that I quit and said, nah, I'm not letting you quit, because you haven't even tried. And that really hit me, because I felt like I was working hard, and I felt like I was the first one in, I was the last one out, I was working Saturdays, I was doing more dials than anybody else. But what he said next was, you haven't truly tried to understand the art and craft of communication. And I didn't believe that it was an art or a craft. I honestly thought that you were either born with the gift of the gab or you weren't, and introverts couldn't do this. So he challenged me. He said, give me 60 days. Fanatically obsess over this craft, and if in the next 60 days you don't go from 21st to 1st, I'll pay for you and my ex-wife now, Alicia, I'll pay for you to fly wherever you want in the world, but leave here with your head held high, knowing you gave this a really good shot. And we might dive into it more later on, but long story short, I went from 21st to first in 5 weeks by understanding some core principles around sales and communication. Number one, the overarching principle was that sales is a process. That principle has changed for me over the years now, but sales is a process and can be learned, just like engineering. And once that penny dropped for me, I'm like, okay, so if it can be learned, then I can improve. This is not just something that you have innate inside of you. And I fell in love with the process of selling before I fell in love with selling. And that was really important. And then over the next 12 months, I did $334,000 in commissions. And I'm like, just because I changed the words that I use, because I changed the order of which I ask questions, because I started to understand humans, not sales. And then, that obviously flowed through to 2014, starting the business, and a hell of a journey.
And that journey's been so insane, man. 3 Shark Tank investors, ups and downs. We're going to talk about imposter syndrome in a second. Before we dive into that, you said this word that's so powerful, communication. And people think of sales as this sleazy, dirty thing. But sales is every single day. I'm selling my wife.
Yeah.
Might sound a bit dirty, but when I'm selling her on the fact that I need to work late tonight, when I'm selling her on the fact of how I want to raise our children, when I'm selling my team on how I want them to show up in our company culture, I'm constantly selling, and it's just another word for communication.
Yeah, I agree.
So can you talk to me about how sales, aka communication, isn't just money for a service, it's also day-to-day life? Like, how does that connection happen?
I think firstly, it's important to recognize that selling is a dirty word, depending on your interpretation of what it actually means. I used to think it was a dirty word because I only saw it as transactional, and I hadn't looked at it for a different lens. And there is still, to this day, in 2025, hundreds of thousands of millions of sales reps out there that have one intent, and that is to make a sale and make a commission. So that is dirty. That you are not doing it for the greater good of the other person on the end of the phone, on the Zoom, or in the coffee shop, in the boardroom, whatever it may be. However, if you can genuinely flip that narrative, and this is what Jack did for me, and I don't know whether he's an absolute genius or whether it was an accident, he changed my narrative on sales by virtue of getting me to disconnect from the outcome. I'll explain to you what I mean by that. So he said to me, if you go for the next 60 days fanatically obsessing over sales and communication and just human beings, and you don't improve, I'm going to pay for your flights anyway. So what he did was give me an out. So now I went in the next day literally not caring about the person on the end of the phone. And I don't mean not caring about them as a human. I didn't care if they bought or not. And that's really important because a lot of us, we don't get given the opportunity to categorically disconnect from the outcome. We get told it all the time, like emotionally disconnect, just focus on the person. That's easier said than done when you've got a manager putting pressure on you and you've got shareholders putting pressure on you and you've got bills to pay and food to put on the table. But Jack gave me this out. So that next day, I literally stopped caring about whether they bought or not. And that coincided with Shane, the owner of the business, said to me, Ryan, you speak to 300 people a day. You have an opportunity to learn 300 times a day. Nobody gets that opportunity in life. So I actually started to think, well, hold on, I've got Tony on the phone. What might he know in life? Forget about what I was selling. What might he know in life that I don't? And even if people were like rude to me, I might just say at the end, Tony, teach me one thing. And they'd be like, what? And I realized it kept them on the phone. Little thing, it was a pattern interrupt. I didn't know it was a pattern interrupt. I didn't know anything about human behavior. I said, Tony, teach me one thing. And you might, I don't know, be more curious, Ryan. Stop pushing your product. I'm like, okay, cool, be curious. And I started to compound all these like lessons. I'd accelerated lessons from all these 300 people a day. And inadvertently, by doing that, when I disconnected from the commission, I connected to the human. People would stay on the phone longer. They'd give me more information, and I'd make more sales. So that translates into everything that we do in life now because my focus is to connect to a human, not to make a sale. And even you talk about your wife, and I'm divorced, so I'm probably not a great advocate for relationship coaching, and there's different reasons that happen, but I'm not saying things to her to get my way. I'm just asking her to explore different perspectives. Yeah. And that's what I've become fascinated with. How can I get other human beings to look at things for a slightly different lens for their benefit? And the only way I know it's their benefit is if I've asked the right questions in the first place. So yeah, it crosses over to everything that we do.
If you're getting value from this podcast episode, please do me a favor and hit that subscribe button and the bell icon. It allows us to reach more men, to keep more families together, and to give you more value with the guests that we get on board. So please do me a favor, hit subscribe, hit that bell icon so we can give you even more value. Yeah, what I'm hearing you say in a different way is service over sales. So you're creating a human connection. You're getting curious with the people around you, whether they're going to pay you money or not, and you genuinely want to learn from them and therefore add value to them by offering a different perspective. And when you think about it, I'm assuming that's what sales is. They come to you with a perspective. My marriage isn't working, my team isn't performing, etc. You help them solve the problem, and their perspective goes from, I don't need help, to, I'm going to give you money for the solution, right? Yeah. So ultimately, you are a perspective shifter and a connector, not a salesperson.
Yeah.
What a powerful shift.
So I heard a phrase yesterday. I interviewed a guy called Phil M. Jones, he lives in New York, UK guy. And he said, we're professional mind maker-uppers.
I love that.
And I love that. I'm like, we help people make their mind up for their own benefit. But if I take what you said a step further, help them find a solution to their problems, often they don't know the problem they have.
Yes.
They know the symptom, but they don't know what's causing it. And after coaching, as you said earlier on, 21,500 businesses across all industries and sectors, completely industry agnostic, because it's about human connection, not about product, that most people don't know their problems. They would say to us, we need objection handling training, or we need closing training. That's not the problem. Their prep was all wrong in the first place. They didn't know their target market, their avatar. They didn't know how to frame a conversation. They didn't know what to put in an agenda in a calendar. They didn't know how to open a call. They didn't know what order to ask questions in. And you fix that, you stop the objections on the back end anyway. You get less friction. Staff members don't go home feeling like they've been in the boxing ring all day. So our job is to help them firstly find the problems and the root cause that they didn't even know existed. And that's why they're called blind spots, right?
So powerful. Now, I want to switch tactics here a little bit. You have grown something massive. I mean, you don't have 3 Shark Tank investors unless you're successful, I'm assuming. Did you ever wrestle with imposter syndrome, becoming this new identity, engineer to #1 Australian sales coach? Did you have imposter syndrome, and how did you overcome that?
I still got imposter syndrome.
Yeah, so talk to me about that.
And we just spoke about it before. I was driving here today, and you're literally a few hundred meters away from the boiler room that I used to work in on an industrial estate around the corner. And I had this moment of gratitude, I guess you could call it, that I now get to do this. This is me just sharing my journey in the hope that maybe one person takes some value from it. But just 14, 15 years ago, I'm around the corner making all these phone calls. So as I'm driving here, I'm like, who am I to answer questions and give people advice? But I've had a journey, so I can correct myself quickly. So I still have elements of it, but I correct myself quicker than I used to.
How do you do that?
Evidence.
Yeah.
So I'm an engineer. I need evidence. I need data. And I've done a lot to work on gut decisions, and I struggle with it to this day. And he's not officially a decision-making coach, but it's a guy I used to work with back in the UK that I always found that he was fantastic at making decisions, very efficient, very effective. And some of them would go right, some of them would go wrong, but even if it went wrong, he'd still be efficient in making his next decision. So a few years ago, I reached out to him and asked him, how does he do that? And he got me to do something, which is one of the absolute genius. He got me to draw a line down the center of a piece of paper, and he said, every time you go forth and make a decision moving forward, what I want you to do is write down what your gut would do on the left-hand side. So whatever it may be, like you choose a new CRM, choose a new marketing company, go speak on a podcast, whatever it is. What does your gut say? Do it, don't do it, do it, don't do it. So left side is pretty simple. And he said, but don't make the decision. Then just continue the way you always make decisions. So for me, it would be sleep on it for 3 weeks, cost analysis, do a cost analysis, speak to somebody that I think might know something about said topic, blah, 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 and then make the decision. And he said, then give it another 60 days and see what the ramifications of that decision were. And cross-reference it with your gut decision. And what he was able to prove to me was that 82% of the decisions I made with my gut were the same decision I made after going through my own process in my head. So he was able to prove to me that I'm actually a good decision maker. or I can be an effective and efficient decision maker. So now it's just sped it all up because now I have evidence to go, it's always okay. It's going to be okay. And it's one of the final words I say before I go on stage now. And that I really struggled with that aspect. I engaged a guy called Harry Singer, public speaking coach. He's worked with like Tony Robbins, Robert Kiyosaki, Richard Branson, like the best in the world. He's based over in the UK. And he helped me create certain anchors and frames so I could get in the right mindset to get rid of this imposter syndrome. So the last thing I do say is, it's always all right. It's always all right. Whatever happens, it's always okay. Even when I went through my divorce, in that moment, I can go, it's always all right. I haven't been divorced before, but I just had this feeling now through evidence over a period of time that life's going to be okay.
Yeah, and your mental models and language support a life of abundance because it's always going to be okay. I'm going to figure it out. I have evidence. A lot of men lack that. And a lot of men as well, they are struggling with stress in the business. They're struggling to pay bills. Their team isn't performing, or they're making money, but the rest of their life is fucked, right? I'm sure someone can look at you and think, he's so successful, but they don't see what happens behind the scenes. So what was the hardest part of building this empire of Swish? Over 20,000 businesses helped. What was the hardest part of that? What was the darkest moment for you that people might be able to relate to?
I think there's so many dark moments.
Well, that's good to know.
There is so many, and there still is. There's like 2 weeks ago, I got smashed with an $83,000 tax bill for projected revenue that I might earn.
So you haven't even made the money yet?
I haven't even made the money, and they just took it out of my bank, garnished it. And I'm like, what? Like that was a black moment. But then quick reframe. How fortunate am I that I could just lose $83,000 in a day? I would have been crying out to be able to do that 10 years ago. So, and I can switch out of that really, really quickly now. But that was a micro dark moment. What else would be one? So, founder exit. So Jack exited in 2020. We had a real estate investment company that we co-founded together as well. His passion evidently became more real estate. I didn't love that industry. It made us great money, but I didn't love it. I didn't love some of the circles that we were falling into or people that were coming into our world. Didn't feel congruent to who I was and what I wanted to stand for. So we decided that he was going to take that, and I took Swish. And then that was Jan 2020, and then April 2020 we were locked down for COVID. So bearing in mind, I've got the 3 shocks, but I don't have the 3. They're not in my office. They're not with me every day. I'm now a business owner by myself for the first time ever. The only reason I started the business was because of Jack. I never wanted to run a business. It was his confidence that he'd done it many times before. And truth be told, he was the one that was pushing it, and I was the little minion behind the scenes. I'm a good worker bee. And I still think to this day I'd be a good employee for somebody. I wouldn't want to be, but I could be. Yeah. So once he left, I'm like, shit, what do I do now? Oh, it's okay. The business will carry on running as is. And then all of a sudden the world stopped. And I very, very quickly had to understand the dynamics of running a business by myself. Obviously, I did have the sharks to leverage, of course, but that felt pretty lonely. And I remember one thing Andrew Banks said to me at this time, one of our investors. He's like, communicate often and communicate well with your team and with your clients. And that really stood out for me because I remember going into my team just as we were told we were going to lockdown, and I think I opened with, guys, I don't know if we're going to survive. I don't know if that was the best phrase to use, but it was real, and it's how I felt. And then I said, but I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that we do. But I don't want any of you to leave. I don't want any of you to lose your jobs. But I've never navigated this before, and I think that obscene amount of vulnerability in the moments where people expect you to stand up and be strong. I'm like, guys, I don't know. Yeah. I actually don't know what to do right now. Apart from work hard, that's all I had, and there'd be mistakes I made along the way, of course. But that was challenging. The divorce that I went through. I remember purposely not telling my team that me and my wife had separated for about 3 months because I wanted them to know that it wasn't going to affect me in the workplace. So I remember pulling them aside. We do what we call TCMs, training, coaching, mentoring sessions with each of my staff members. And every time I told them, I said, I pulled them in. I said, have you noticed anything different about me over the last few months? I was like, nah. I was like, okay, so just so you know, Alicia and I have separated. And they were like, oh God, oh no, oh God, are you okay? Is it going to affect the business? I said, has it affected the business? Well, no. I was like, okay, cool, we're cool. All right, this happened 3 months ago. So I don't know, I get quite, in dark times, and this might be my engineering brain, and I'm not saying this can work for everybody, I get hyper logical, like super focused on the what now. That doesn't mean I don't feel the emotions of it. I definitely allow myself to feel it, but I also am not going to sit there and wallow in it. And I don't know if that's great advice.
So powerful. No, it's so powerful, man, because a lot of men do wallow. I've been there, and so have our clients.
But I want people to know that's okay. Like you can, but you also get to choose how long you wallow for. Like I go through it, but I feel like I've got this accelerated ability to go, oh fuck, oh Jesus Christ, what next?
Yeah.
And otherwise, no one's coming for me.
Yeah.
No one's helping me. No one's helping me do my divorce papers, my settlement papers. No one's organizing my tax returns. No one's giving me clients. No one's picking up the phone for me. Like, no one's doing that for anybody, unfortunately. That would be a hell of a job.
Yeah.
So it's on me. It is on me at the end of the day.
It's radical responsibility and extreme ownership, because every minute you spend in blame, victim, everything's fucked, wallowing, you're allowed to do that, but it's a minute you're not solving it.
Yeah.
So you seem to have this solver mindset. And I want to touch on a point you just shared earlier about vulnerability. I was smiling as you said it, because you didn't just be vulnerable. You were radically honest and vulnerable. We might not have a business, but then you layered it with assertiveness and certainty, even though you were uncertain. So we might not have a business, but I'm going to do everything I can to figure it out. And that's a lesson for anyone listening in your marriage. I'm feeling upset and angry right now, but I'm going to figure it out. I don't know if this business will survive, but I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah.
If you can combine that sales, vulnerability with that assertiveness, it's so fucking powerful, right?
Yeah.
I want to talk about you and balance, because you seem like you have balance. You're a father to 2 children, right?
Yeah.
You're going through a separation right now. Talk to me about how you've navigated business and success with family and balance. How's that journey been for you?
I don't. I definitely, it's nice that it looks
What
like
have
that.
you struggled with?
Balance.
Yeah, okay. Tell me more about that.
I think, so I don't believe in balance. I believe in counterbalance. I don't think we can do everything at the same time. I don't think anybody can do that. And we do know the data suggests that women can juggle more things than men, a lot better. But I can be all here 100% present with the kids. I can be all here present with this particular podcast right now. I can be all here in this sales interaction right now by virtue of running the strictest diary that you could possibly imagine. And I know even at our events, I put my diary up on stage when I go through daily structures and how to be an effective and efficient performer. I see people get anxiety just looking at my diary. To me, it's beautiful. It's the sexiest thing you could ever look at.
I feel you.
And what it does, those systems breed freedom for me. I build in creativity, thinking time. I build in me time, business development time. I'm 42 years old, nearly 43. 5 years ago, when I had my oldest boy, Maverick, I made a conscious decision that I was going to shuffle everything in the organization so that I could do the pickups and the drop-offs every single day. I didn't know I was going to go for a separation at the time, but I built my business in that form, and it's really paid off now because at certain points I have to. I am the person dropping off and picking up because I'm not with my wife anymore, my ex-wife. And that's really important. This afternoon I'll go and watch him play football at 4 o'clock. I get to watch him 3 times a week. So the only way I've been able to create anything like that is putting systems in place to scale, which also means I've had to let go of my expectations of humans. I'm a big believer in making sure we've got A players on the bus and having the right people in the team. 10 years, 65, 70 staff later, I've got a core of 6 that I would say they are my A players. They're absolutely phenomenal. And what that means is they probably do the productivity of about 20 people, because we all run very, very effective and efficient diaries and structures. I like to think I treat them well. They have fulfillment as well as achievement, which is what I was missing in the UK. Sounds not very humble, but I actually care about them. Like as humans, we spend a lot of time outside of work together as well, not just as teammates. And what that means is, whilst I'm here doing this, they understand this is part of growing the business. I'm not just on a jolly, and I know what they're doing back in the office. So even yesterday, my youngest, he was supposed to be at kindy. Something happened on the Wednesday that meant that we weren't going to be able to put him in there. and my team are just rallying, like clearing their diary, shuffling their diary in case I need to bring Fox into the office so that they can be babysitters for me in my office. And I think a lot of people go, right, I've got business and I've got family, they're my staff members. I do merge it all. I do feel like they overlap within some really rigid parameters of a diary and daily structures.
Yeah.
The diary side of things, protecting your time for the things you want to do, I understand that we've got to pay bills and we've got to make money, and I'm saying this 10 years later, and I think that's also important to note as well, is in the early days, you're going to have less of that, and that's the sacrifice we had to make. I was working 6 days a week, 14, 15-hour days, and wearing it as a badge of honor. But would I be here right now if I didn't do that for a season or two? Probably not.
No.
So I do actually think you do need to do that. I talk to my 26, 27-year-old staff members that don't have kids or a mortgage. I'm like, you should never leave.
Yeah.
That's not HR advice. But if they genuinely want it, like genuinely, and some people don't.
Yeah.
But would I rather have a team of would I rather have a team performing at 80% of what I can do, or me just doing it at 100%? So that's what I meant by that expectation gap.
Of course,
well.
yeah. I mean, it seems like you've gone through the atypical journey where you've gone through the grind and the struggle. Now you're going through a separation, but you also now have a world where you've built your business around your children and your life. But you had to go through that season, right?
Yeah.
And it's fascinating. Our business coaches, business owners who are struggling in their relationships and personal life. We have a client doing $67 million a year. Never used a schedule. So many of us hear what you're saying and they're like, a rigid schedule? That's crazy.
Yeah.
They think it's chaotic to have a schedule, but it's only chaos if you don't use a schedule, right? So you've built like a really good balance here, but you've gone through the struggle, correct?
100%. And I've sat there till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning whilst waiting for my we did night feeds together. We were 50-50 with everything. It's not like I missed out on any of their childhood. It was I'm going to have to do more through these early years. It was never a matter of I'm going to close the business for a few years and be a stay-at-home dad, but I'm doing everything 50-50. So every 2 hours I'm getting up doing the feeds just like Alicia was, and I'm sitting there on my laptop waiting for them to wake up before I do the next thing. I'm replying to social media messages constantly. I don't know where it's going to go, but it just felt like the right thing to do in the moment. And
you committed and you went all in and you're now reaping the rewards. You said that word earlier, it's a season. I think a lot of men expect to have success and wealth and money and connection and all these things lined up. It's earned, it's not given. Like you've grinded to get here, but now you finally have that freedom, which most men chase. What advice would you give to a man? What mistakes have you made that have led to either separation or pain that you would recommend someone avoids? What would you recommend they look out for? And if you want to talk about the divorce, you can as well.
Yeah, I can. Yeah. There was a bit you said right at the start of that. What advice would I give? Create your perfect life. I think a lot of people don't create it. I'm not saying you'll get it, but you've got to at least create it once. Yeah. I remember Glenn Richards, so another one of our investors, he's the founder of Green Cross Pet Barn, like 6,000 staff across 600 stores at one point. You don't get to that size without having systems. I remember sitting at a golf course with him in Brisbane many, many years ago, and he was asking me about my daily structure. And it's basically, I teach what he taught me on a napkin that day over a beer. I teach that in our 3-day boot camp now, literally the same daily structure. And he said, the first thing you're going to put in your diary now for the next 12 to 18 months is your holidays. First thing, right, goes in there. So every 12 weeks, there's a holiday of some sort, even if it's a long weekend. So I'm never more than 12 weeks away from a bit of downtime. Then goes in all of your annual reviews, your quarterly reviews, your monthlies, your weeklies, blah, blah, blah. And you work the business all the way back. And then you go, what day do you want to do training? Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. How many hours a week do you want to deliver for? Blah, blah, blah. So create the absolute perfect week, knowing you'll never make it that way. But I'm going to be closer than if I didn't create it. So that's the first part. And going through my separation was, it's been good in a way, right? It's been liberating in a way, because when you go through something that, what's the right word for it? I would say monumental. That's not the right word for it, is it?
It's pretty life-changing.
Life-changing would be fair, especially with young kids, right? Because I grew up, my mum and dad are still together 45, 50 years later, and we're not religious or anything, but I grew up in the form of, you find someone, you stay together. And I always wanted that, and I especially wanted it for the kids, that family environment. So to make that decision to walk away from that is life-changing. But at the same time, to take the step back and go, what are the lessons from here? What would I do differently? I did build in me and my ex-wife time into the diary. That was regimented. We had date afternoons and everything. So I look back at it and go, did I do everything in my power for this business, this marriage, to succeed? And yes, I did. I do believe I did. And I think that's important, is that you need, at times when shit hits the fan, whether it be personal, whether it be business, whether it be health, and I've got a PT at the minute, and he's going through the same notion, is did you do everything in your power to succeed at that 10K run that you did, at you trying to put on that weight, at you trying to lift, whatever it is. And if you can't say yes to that, then you've got to make some changes. So the lessons from the marriage were, like, what would I change? I don't know if I would change an awful lot. I actually don't know if I'd change an awful lot. I just think that we went our separate ways. Could I be more focused on them and their career if that's the way they're inclined? Do you know what I mean?
Of course.
I actually made a list afterwards as well of like my perfect partner. I don't know if people do this. And I think I've spoken to a lot of people since they've done this, and they've created this list of the ideal traits and characteristics in a partner. And what it's helped them do is realize they're actually with the right person. For me, it was like, okay, I was with the wrong person, so now I've got a checklist for the next person, which is not easy to do, but I don't know, I'm quite methodical in that.
But I think you have to be with this, right? Patrick Bet-David talks about 100 questions he asked his wife before they got married. It was the second date. And think about it. We get married and have children. We literally get married and have children for life with this person. Yeah. You can't separate the children. And we don't align on values. We don't write a list of what's perfect. We just fall in love. In business, you do your research. So it's amazing advice to write that list of the perfect partner. And something you just touched on is so powerful. Did you give it everything you could? Most of us can really not answer that honestly and say yes. You know, when it comes to your marriage, when it comes to your business, when it comes to your health, are you fucking showing up as a man? Most men would say no.
And that doesn't mean I was the perfect husband, right? That doesn't mean I was the perfect dad. Was I disproportionately focused on business at certain seasons, certain times? Absolutely. Was I doing that with the right intent to create a great family environment and to provide? Yes, of course. Like, did I ever do anything untoward or cheat or anything? No, never. Like, so can I look back and go, yeah, maybe I could take 10% off my working situation, but if I did, maybe it wouldn't have given me that. So now I'm in a different season. Somebody's meeting me at a different stage of life. I can also be, I love the word radically that you've used a couple of times. I can be radically honest and open and say, hey, this is my life. And I'm very conscious at the moment and very aware, and I might get a bit of abuse for this, that my boys are first, my business is second. At this season in my life, I feel like I've got this window of my life right now where the brand is strong, the business is strong, we're global, we're playing with the biggest people in the industry or the speaking industry, and there's some 21-year-old flying up behind me that'll just take that spot if I don't go all in right now. And if I can go all in for this next season on this, that'll be a multi-generational change that I can create to the Tuckwood name, so to speak. And that would make me really, really proud.
That's a phenomenal vision, and I know you're going to achieve it. You're already achieving it. What would you say to the man listening to this who doesn't have that grand vision? They just want to have a great investment portfolio, be a great father, but they're struggling to build this thing. They've got the stresses, the team, all the stuff you've gone through. What do you say to that person who doesn't want to go multinational and big, who just wants a good life? Like, what advice would you give that person?
I think it's relative. That's still a grand vision.
Yeah.
Right? Your vision is grand, whatever the vision. It doesn't need to be material or by revenue or size of team. None of that matters. It's just that your vision is grand, and you need to believe that, because if it's not grand, it's not motivating. And if it's not motivating, you won't take the right actions towards it. It's just a thing. If it's a nice to instead of a need to, you're not going to do the hard stuff for a while. So again, create, like, there's not an end goal, I don't think. I realized this, we did our 1,000-person event in October. That would have been my end goal 10 years ago. That's like, I've made it, done, I'll retire. It's just a milestone along the way. I'm just ticking a box of things that I want to achieve in my life. So if you then bring that down to the micro so that you get fulfillment, not just achievement, how many boxes can you tick every week to go, hey, I got some time with my wife today, I got some time with my kids today. And not just time, but I got present time. Real present time. My diary's blocked out every single day from about 2:15 till 5 o'clock, regardless of whether I have the kids or not, because maybe my ex-wife can't pick the kids up. Maybe something goes on. I want to be there as an emergency. I'm the first emergency responder to my kids' emergency. So I can sit and do maths and do the writing and stuff. So I want to be present in it. And then I can sit there every Sunday night and go, look back and go, did I do everything that I could this week to be fulfilled and to help the other person in my life and make sure that they're getting what they need as well. So I think you need to ask the question regularly. It's not like every year or it's daily. My team do a daily feedback email to me of their level of fulfillment and achievement each day.
If you want to actually take this framework that I shared and apply it to your life, it's part of our Empowered Man Armory and our app that we've spent almost 250 grand on. If you want access to a powerful system where you can use this reframe system I just shared with you every single day, then find me on Instagram at Tony Empowered Man. TonyEmpowredman. I'll put the link down below as well. Send me a DM saying reframe, and I'll give you this exact framework as well as early access to the Empowered Man app when it launches. Yeah, and that's such a powerful thing we don't think about because we say we want fulfillment, achievement, freedom, but we end up sacrificing that in the process of achieving it, right?
Well, and it's getting there. I'm getting there. Where? Yeah. Where are you going?
Yeah, where's the destination?
Nobody knows where they're going. How you doing, mate? Yeah, I'm getting there. Where? And then I said this to my team about 2 weeks ago. We were talking about refining the CRM system and refining all of our automations. We remodeled last year, and I've just rebuilt all of the sales processes and touch points. And one of the team members said to me, once that's done, it's going to be good. I'm like, it's never done. We are never done. At some stage, we have to admit we're there now. We're in it. We need to reap the rewards now, right? You thought when you got engaged, we're there now. I've got him. I've got her. They're locked down now. They're mine. Then we get married and we're like, oh, well, that's it. They're ours now. At some stage, you've got to start enjoying what you did to get to the position that you're in today. And I think that's why those micro fulfillments are really important. And you've got to look for them. You've got to build them out. One of my team's daily feedback verticals is metric for success today. How do I know I won today? What was a successful day? It makes me laugh. I've been in so many sales environments. You see people walk out and they go, see you, Tony, you have a good day? And you go, yeah, no, it was good. And I look at the sales board and you've made no sales. And I'm like, based on what? Like what's your metric for being a good day?
Yeah.
And I think we can ask ourselves that personally and professionally.
Yes. When we track at Empowered Man, we just spend a lot of money on an app. Every day at the end of the day, we do an evening reflection and we track our peace out of 10, our connection, our purpose, our presence, and our work if we worked. So we have a tangible number. It's relative, right? What's my peace? And a lot of guys that work with us, they started a 4 and now they're at average of an 8, right? You've spoken a lot about, balance with the children, balance with the business. You've built your business around your life. You're an example of having it all, right? I believe you've got the business.
I wouldn't agree with that, but yeah.
Well, compared to most though, right? Sure, you're going through a separation, but your mindset, it's there. You look healthy, you look happy, you communicate well. A lot of men don't believe they can have it all. What would you say to a man who is like, it's so hard to juggle all the balls and wear all the hats? How does a man like that shift his mindset to believe he can have it all?
So I think for me, it comes down to, you said it earlier on, the abundance thinking. 2013, I made $334,000 in commissions. That money aside, right? Because some people listening, that'll be a lot of money. Some people, that's like nothing. That changed my life for a few different reasons. I had a scarcity mindset. Like I was one of those people that was so obsessed with holding on to the last $2,000 I've got because I didn't grow up around money. I didn't think the money was coming back to me if I let it go. in 2013, that was the first year I could support my mum and dad back home in England. My dad in 2001 got diagnosed with stage 4 esophagus cancer, got given weeks to live. He's still here. He's still here like 24 years later, right? He's a cockroach. I can't get rid of him. And he had the longest non-brain surgery in UK history at the time, 23 hours straight. He's highly disfigured. He's lost half his face. But he's still here. Couldn't work, hasn't been able to work since. They lost their house through that whole process, don't have superannuation or pension. In 2013, I was able to give them money, right? Support them. So I realized that selling is impact. But on top of that, that 1 year of making all that money, it made me shift from scarcity to abundance. And I think if we can really believe, like actually believe that there's an abundance of money out there, and if I build a good relationship with it through proof of, yeah, I've done this once, I can do it again, then you'll start to outsource the things that don't serve you in your day to day. Like I remember getting a pool cleaner and a gardener. And I remember my mum like laughing at me because my mum was a cleaner as well. My first job was cleaning. And she's like, why are you paying for a cleaner? I'm like, because I pay them $30 an hour and I get paid a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
But couldn't compute that, right? It didn't make sense. So if we're going to look at our life and go, well, I can't do it all. Well, you're right, but I bet you're doing more than you should be.
100%.
Right now. So like that self-audit, and it starts at home. We look at home firstly and we go, what don't I need to be doing? What does my husband or my wife not need to be doing so that I can free us up for an extra 3 hours a week? But then how do I use that time? Because that's what I hear. I mean, you're way more into this than I am, but the micro arguments on a day-to-day basis, I can't do this right now because I've got to do this.
100%.
It's like, do you got to do that? Do you have to do that? And I have this conversation with my team. I won't name names. One of them, she just wanted a cleaner. Right? She made a $36,000 sale and gets paid $3,600 for it. I said, that's your annual cleaning fee for a cleaner. Your first commission goes on the cleaner for a year. Done. Stop. I don't want to hear you talk about cleaners again. Got the cleaner, and she's like, oh my God, it changed my life.
Yeah.
But it's that I don't want to spend on that. It's imposter syndrome. It's diminishing to get somebody else to clean your house. No, it's a sensible commercial decision so that you can then spend time on being present watching your kids play sports. Or I used to love cleaning the pool when I moved to Australia. I'm English. I never thought I would have a pool. So I remember coming over here on Saturday mornings when I first got a house with a pool. I'm out there. I'm throwing leaves in the pool so I can clean leaves out of the pool. And then I had Maverick.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want to spend time cleaning the pool anymore. I want to sit and just watch my baby on this rocker on a Saturday morning now. I just want to be. So I'm going to pay someone else to clean the pool.
So clever. And when you think about it, why do we make money? It's to buy back our time. But then we hold on to that money so tightly, and it's because of that scarcity mindset.
So we have to look for proof of that in our life, of where that abundance is.
Yeah, and also rewire the way we think about money, right? It's all ingrained in us. Money doesn't grow on trees and all these beliefs. Yeah. You said something earlier that really struck me. You heard me say the word radically 2 times. You were listening to me. So not only are you talking to me in this format, but you're hearing me and you're processing what I'm saying. That's a skill. That's listening. Can you talk to me about how listening and relaying information ties to sales and life in general? Because you seem quite good at that, and many people are not.
I'm good at that because I don't have to think about anything else right now because my diary is so tight.
Okay.
That's it.
How does a regular person listen like you do? Because imagine in your marriage, if you listen and you said, hey, honey, you said that word. I'm a piece of shit. I hear you. Instead of getting defensive, right? It applies to life.
It's all, let's be real, right? It's also different at home.
Of course,
And I'm a fixer. You said it earlier. I don't know if you used the word fit, solver.
We want to solve our problems. We're men. Fix this shit, woman.
And I want to solve my wife's problems. And she tells me she's annoyed because she went for coffee with Jane and Jane moaned about this. And I'm like, well, why don't you do this? She says, I don't want your advice. I'm like, well, everybody else wants my advice. I went on a podcast today.
Yeah.
So for me, firstly, it starts with being able to be present in any moment in particular. I love the book, The Third Space. Have you read The Third Space?
Yeah.
I forget his name, Blue Book. And in the book, he talks about we have our workspace, we have our home space, and especially since COVID, they get merged. So I'm work Ryan, then I'm husband Ryan, but they're kind of overlapping, and we need to create a third space in the middle, which might be sit in your car for 2 minutes on the driveway before you go in the house and you turn yourself into Dad Ryan, you turn yourself into husband Ryan. And what I've done in my diary in my life is create buffers. Like, I'm here early for this podcast because I created a buffer, because I know that I need to sit for a couple of minutes, or I need to on the drive, and I have my 2 kilometer rule before I get to appointments, where I turn the podcast off, I turn the radio off, and I get present, and I go, right, who am I meeting today? Tom, videographer, is going to be here. I know obviously about you. I want to make sure that if you've got an EA that's going to be here, that's been organizing things, that I remember their name. Like, I'm getting really present about the thing I'm about to do. And that's not just business, that's when I walk in the door at home as well. So
is that a skill?
I think it is a skill.
Yeah.
I think it is something that it's a muscle that you need to build. You walk through the door, and the first noise you make when you walk in through the door is, oh, what a day. Brilliant. Can't wait to spend the evening with you. Right?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And it's not intentional. You don't drive home and go, how am I going to fuck up my relationships today? Yeah. You don't plan it. It subconsciously happens, right?
It's like kids. Kids come home from school, and then they just break down, because you're their safe place. Yes. And I think as husband and wife, or husband and husband, wife and wife, whatever it looks like, you're their safe space. So we naturally want to do that. But you didn't marry that person to hear the huffing and puffing and sighing every single day. And I'm not saying that you can't have that conversation. I think you do need somewhere to kind of express it. It's the same as my team. If I walked in every morning like, oh God, that school drop off this morning, absolute nightmare. Like, who wants to come and hear that shit every day?
Yeah.
Like, that's not their fault. Equally, it's not my wife's fault what happened in my day-to-day. It's not my fault what happened in her day-to-day. So just creating that little third space in between to give yourself a chance to regulate. And then maybe at a certain point, we have a designated time. I know it sounds regimented, but where we go, tell me about your day. Right.
I think it's a great idea.
And now I can be present.
That's a phenomenal idea.
If you started interviewing me, you come out to the car and like we start filming straight away, and you're like, so Ryan, tell me about your divorce.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? Jesus Christ! Fuck? Like, you're not going to get the best version of me.
Yeah.
Because you haven't given me an opportunity to center.
Yes. And the presence is such an important thing. That 2-minute rule I've never heard of before. It's so
2 kilometer rule, yeah.
2 kilometer rule, sorry.
Do you know where it came from?
Where?
I saw an advert, I forget what it was, where somebody was going to a job interview. It was on TV. And she's sitting at the lights, chewing gum, like rocking away, listening to music, and she's picking her nose, looks over, sees a guy looking at her. She gives him the finger, and that guy was the one interviewing her.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, you never know who's watching.
Yeah.
You never know who's anywhere. So 2 kilometers from wherever I'm going, I'm like, right, now I'm on. Not that I'll be picking my nose and chewing gum.
Yeah. I think anyone listening really gets to soak that in, because it's hard to be present for a lot of us. You know, we've got this third limb here. Anyone listening, I'm holding my phone right now, and the brain's going 1,000,000 miles an hour. So you mentioned that muscle. If you go to the gym and do bicep curls, it becomes stronger.
Yeah.
How can you flex the muscle of presence? And the answer is by bringing yourself back to the moment. It seems like something you've mastered.
So there was imposter syndrome. So back in the old day, I'm speaking to executives and CEOs. This is at the old boiler room environment. And Jack had said to me one day, right, when you walk in the room in the morning, I want you to tap the door frame on the way in, right? And you turn off that imposter syndrome the second you walk in. And it just became a little anchor for me that I have an ability as I walk through this doorway to go, right, I'm leaving all of that behind. And I guess what that was a third space anchor.
That's powerful. One of the things we teach our guys when you come home after a long day, sit in your car, take 5 deep breaths, and then as you walk through the door, imagine it's a force field that takes off your cloak of the bullshit of the day. And it's just that awareness and taking the subconscious stress and consciously shedding it, it brings you into the moment. Doesn't always work.
It doesn't always work because you're not training both parties.
Of course.
As well. And this is important in sales as well, is that I'm not going to change a whole demographic of people on the way they think about life. I'm not going to stop every single human walking around going, oh, it's raining again. Like, that's not going to happen. People aren't going to change for me, but I'm still bringing 50% of the energy. So my 50% can be bang on, and it means that I'm going to be able to deal with whatever they bring. And then when you get 2 people that bring a great energy, it feels electric, right? So I think we need to do the relationship counseling. We need to work on the relationship. I do believe that is a thing.
Yeah.
But it starts with us. And so whether I had a new partner right now or not, the next person that got me would get the best version of me or a better version of me, because I know these little tools.
It's so powerful though, because when you show up as that version of yourself, people leave the room with you going, that was amazing. But so many of us have been the guy who they leave the room and they go, that was shit. You feel a bit drained, you know?
So I call that your 60-second legacy.
Yes.
So everybody you meet, and this came from doing so many cold calls. I've done 330,000 cold calls in my time. And you learn a thing or two, firstly, about keeping people on the phone, but you also learn a thing or two about signing off and making sure that you're memorable.
Yeah.
And I like to think, even when I walk out of here today, I'll drive off. Tom might say to you, what do you reckon? And whatever you say, your first words out of your mouth about me, that's my 60-second legacy.
Yeah.
And every single one of us, we're going to meet thousands of people every single year. What do people say about you when you leave the room? Do they even remember you were in the room? And that's a starting point. How does your partner describe you to other people? And I think we have to be conscious about that. I know what people say when they see me and I'm dressed the way that I'm dressed.
The first thing I said to you was, you look amazing.
That's not what everybody says.
Yeah.
But it's fine, because I understand that
Yeah.
some people look at me and go, oh, Jesus Christ, I've got to do a full day of training with this guy.
Yeah.
I'm going over to the mine. I'm going to WA in 2 weeks. There'll be a lot of people from the mines over there. Like, they will think differently of this attire, but it's who I am. I've always liked fashion. So I can own that, and I can bring it to the conversation as quickly as possible so they still know that I'm human. I think it's when you don't acknowledge that people are judging you, regardless, that you don't start to adapt, adjust, and respond to the people in front of you.
Yeah, is that sales? So like, you go into a mine site, you're tuxedoed up, suited up. You literally speak to what they're thinking. You would say, look, I know I look like a fucking salesman right now, and I know you guys think I'm a dickhead. Is that what you mean? You're acknowledging what's going on for them as part of that legacy?
I always say that if you can speak prospect better than prospect can speak prospect, they'll say, he gets it.
Yeah.
And my aim is to get you to go, he understands, as quickly as possible. So I do my research. Like, again, Phil that I was interviewing yesterday, he always talks about doing the work before the work.
Yes.
And that's really important, is that we do the work before the work. The relationship work. I'm doing the work, the regulation, the taking 5 deep breaths. That's the work before the work of the conversation that I'm about to have.
Yeah.
Going to speak at an environment like the mines, the work before the work is what is their key challenges that they're facing right now, so that I can verbalize it before they verbalize it. So they go,
powerful.
oh, he gets me. So I might say something like, guys, it's interesting. I know you guys have been around since 1972, and you're across 6 states right now, and I find that fantastic. But, and then they're like, gee, okay, all right, he's done his research, and it just shifts the way they receive the next bit of information they give them, because all behaviors are state dependent. Every single thing that we do or don't do is based on how we feel in that moment of time.
Yeah.
And that's personal and professional, and definitely in a sales environment.
I can't understate what you've just said, is you're actually able to make people shift their state by understanding them. So they have a perception of who you are. They see you in the suit. And by the way, I think you look great. I don't think you look like shit. So just in case you took that the wrong way. But they see you, and then you're able to understand them. You're able to research them. You can do this with your marriage as well. And that changes their perception of you. That 60-second thing you talked about, even if your wife, your children, your team don't say it, they've got a perception of who you are. And it can shift at any given moment.
Yeah.
So every interaction you have with someone, sales is an opportunity to shift their state and shift their perspective. Is that accurate?
100%.
Yeah.
And then, and I want to bring it back to, I know it's a key topic, but I think it's important, is you come home from work, we start to anticipate other people's state.
Yes.
As well. Like, I'm a salesman. I'm an English sales trainer on the Gold Coast dressed like this. What state do you think most people are in when they
defensiveness?
They don't want to be here.
Yeah.
One of the first opening frames that I say at our events is, who doesn't want to be here? And then they're like, yeah. I'm like, I know you don't, because you're sitting far left at the back. Of course you don't want to be here. Then you saw this, and you saw my silly boots as well. Who really doesn't want to be here? It changes their state, right?
Instantly.
You bring a bit of humor. So because leading up to that, and imagine you've you always come in home and the first thing you do is just throw shade on your workmates and you're negative. You're like, oh, I just need to kick my shoes off. I just want to get me a beer, whatever it is, or vice versa. Oh, I've had such a day with the kids today. You start to anticipate that. So then over time, that compounds, and then you don't even want to go through that door. You don't even want to go in. And then, so your state is wrong before, which means it's even harder to change. So we do a lot of things from a sales perspective to change state before they even see us. Like we do excitement calls, not confirmation calls. We do lots of content of value lead up to events. We got a 63% sit rate at free events, which is unheard of for a free event. That would usually be about 15 to 25%. So we got 3 times the sit rate because we change their state before they even arise. So by the time they get there, like, oh yeah, of course he's wearing that. I don't like it, but that's all right. I knew what I was going to get. And that's really important because there's some humans, and you know these people, where they're always bouncing off the walls. They're always 100 miles an hour. They're overly positive. That's annoying. Have that as a reel.
I love that directness. Yeah.
Then you've got some people that are always negative and down. Equally annoying. Don't want to be around those people. But then you've got the people that are up and down, and you don't know what you're going to get. That's hard to live with when you don't know what you're walking into. So that the regulation piece and being somebody that people want to be around, and not all the time, but you're going to have down periods. Of course, you're going to have times where you feel sad and you feel depressed, and you just need to express and have an ugly cry, which I learned that phrase last year. But if it's unpredictable, that makes me not really want to be around it too often.
What you're sharing right now applies everywhere. It applies in fatherhood, with your team, in your business, with your partner, on a sales call, in a marketing meeting. Anyone listening right now, repeat that back, what you just shared, multiple times. Now, you mentioned the ugly cry, right? What do you do to regulate? Because ultimately, you're sharing all this gold right here. I'm sure there are dark days, moments where you're burnt out, tired, stressed. You're not a robot. What do you do to regulate?
They're making it.
What do you do? Like, how do you get out of these negative states so quickly?
If I'm truthful, I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
I actually don't know the answer to that because so I'm nearly 43, and then what's the best way to frame this without insulting people? There's a lot of people that are spiritual that are coming into my life, and they're all saying, oh yeah, it's about time. Right? I'm like, well, don't put me in this box. So there's people that want me to do, I've never had like drugs. I've never done a cigarette. I think I met you at Craig's a couple of years ago, and people were having cigars. I'm like, no, I'm good. I've never done anything like that. And they're trying to get me to do mushrooms, and they're like, you need to work out all of this trauma. I'm like, what trauma? And they're like, well, you definitely got trauma. And I'm like, okay, based on, your dad and all that, and yeah, you've lost friends in accidents, and you went for a divorce and a founder exit, so you must be. And I don't know if I just resist being told certain things, or, and I touched on it earlier, have I got an accelerated ability just to deal with shit? Yeah. So if my answer, if I'm going to give you a rational answer, is I just get on with the next thing. And I'm not saying that's right. But I've heard of ugly cry because people keep telling me I should have an ugly cry, but I can't say I've done it. I can't say I've sat there, and we use the word wallow. Like, I really can't explain it. I just go, that radical responsibility. It's on me to deal with this right now. I've got too many people reliant on me. My team, my clients, like they're reliant on me performing and delivering, and I feel like I've got a responsibility to them. And I think if you don't have a level of responsibility to someone else, whether it be kids, that's when you kind of just sit in it. So I've built a life where not people are reliant on me, but I like that. I like providing, and I like serving. And if I was not able to shake certain things off, then that diminishes my impact. Yeah. And I don't know if is that an ego thing? I don't know. But I honestly, hand on heart, do not feel like I've got something, and maybe you're going to tell me, well, that's what the work does. Maybe there is something down there. I don't know.
I agree so deeply with you because we've had a bunch of guys on the podcast, not naming names and not throwing shade. There is a place for this whole trauma thing, but it can also be very much overplayed.
I think so.
And your beliefs shape everything. So one of your beliefs is, I have an accelerated ability to work through shit. anyone listening right now, let's say you have quote unquote trauma, tough life, whatever the shit is. What if you chose to believe that you can create an accelerated ability to get through shit? Doesn't mean you don't have stress, problems, challenges, fires, tax bills, arguments. What if you chose to believe you could work through it in 5 minutes? What would your life look like?
Yeah.
And that's just a belief.
So I'll give you a really practical example. And this is going to sound cold. This is going to be the worst podcast I've
No,
never.
I love this stuff because people need to hear different perspectives.
So I'm a people pleaser, and I'm working through that at the moment still. And I hate sacking people, but what I hated more than sacking people was when people quit on me because they haven't reached their potential in my organization, or they can't see the vision that I could see, which means I haven't created the right roadmap for them to get their results.
Radical responsibility right there. Just take note of that.
Yeah, it's on me.
You instantly took ownership of them not showing up the way they could.
That's on me. That's my fault, right?
Insane. Love that.
So they then quit. And years ago, what I would then do is take weeks and months analyzing every single interaction I'd had with that person while they're employed for me. Just what could I have done better for him, for her? That's not fair. They're going to go to another organization. They're not going to be valued. They're not going to do their goal setting. They're not going to get their personal development. They're not blah, blah, blah. I beat myself up. Now somebody comes in, they quit. In the middle of their quitting, I'm like, okay, what are we going to put it on Seek? Are we going to put it on Gumtree? In my head, I'm like,
instant solution.
Well, I have to. I can.
You choose to. There is a difference.
Yeah, I choose to. That's true. Yes.
Yeah.
I go, okay, this is just part of life. It's just people are going to quit. I can't blame myself every single time, but I go back to that checklist. Did I do everything in my power to give them the right platform for success in this organization? Did I onboard them properly? Did I manage their expectations correctly? Did I give them a great daily rhythm? Did I give them training, coaching, mentoring? Did I give them all the resources? Yes, 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 yes. Good luck. I hope you leave here better than when you started here. You've left us in a better place as well. All right, what next?
So powerful, man.
Like I've had my best salespeople leave. I've had people that I thought would be with me forever. Now the team I've got right now, I don't want any of them to leave. I would be devastated if any of them left. But I'm not naive to think they're going to stay with me forever. I know they're getting poached right now. People ask them all the time. I know. I see the messages. You know who you are that are messaging my team. And at some stage, somebody's going to get an offer they can't refuse.
Yeah.
And I can sit and I can wallow and I can go, oh my God, nobody's going to be able to do the job as good as they can. Like I'm replaceable. Everybody's replaceable.
Yeah.
So at that stage, I just get to move on to the next thing.
Yeah, and that mindset has served you so well. One thing I often say is the weight on the bar gets heavier and heavier. You just get stronger at carrying it. It doesn't get easier to run a business or be in a marriage. It actually gets harder, but it doesn't feel harder because you're stronger. And look, I understand for a lot of guys who don't believe these things. 3 or 4 years ago, I would drink, sedate, smoke, numb myself because I couldn't deal with this shit. But it wasn't until I started thinking the way you think, this is life, I get to get through it, I get to get through it quickly. That's when life becomes fun.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think you can have a life. I know you can have a life where you're happy, positive, enjoying, fulfilled, great relationship, great family life, great business, great wealth without needing it. Like you can have that.
Yeah, yeah.
But you got to create it.
You got to create it. And you use the word choose there as well. Do you know what's hard? I'm turning into a little bit of the cliche speakers on the circuit. All the ones I'm like, yeah, whatever, mate. Yeah, there's a lesson in everything. Of course there is. There actually is.
There is.
If you choose to look at it through that lens. There is like, oh God, why did I get divorced after 12 years? To teach me X, Y, Z. And so now like the morbid way of looking at my life is I only get to see my boys 50% of their life now, right? And when I sat in that thought for a while, there's no way I'm not being present when I have them. Right? That means that if I was to shift that and go, well, hold on, was I being 100% present in 50% of their life while I was married? Probably not. Now I have to be, right? And now I'm going to be. But so that's the lesson I got through divorce as a parent. So you have to make that conscious decision that even if I don't believe this right now, I'm gonna rewire myself. A phrase you used earlier on. To believe this to be true until it becomes true. Because now a lot of the stuff that I learned from mentors and coaches 10 years ago, I'm like, oh yeah, whatever. You don't understand my situation. I'm like, yeah, fair play.
And it's who you are now. It's not just what you believe. It shows up in how you are as a business owner and as a father.
And that's not faking it till you make it. That's like creating the perfect diary, knowing you're never going to get there. Like I'm not professing to be the perfect dad, but I'm a better dad. I'm not professing to be the perfect partner, but I'm a better partner. And it's not about being perfect, it's about being better.
Well, there is no perfection, there's progress.
Yeah.
Right? I want to talk about that. What do you want your boys to learn about success from watching you work?
Well, it's interesting because a moment ago I was thinking about what I learned from my parents, and it was just hard work. And I think there's two ways that you can do it. You can just do hard work, or you can do hard work with an abundance mindset, which will mean you'll roll the dice a few more times. And I do remember a conversation with my dad before I left Australia to come to Australia. And we were talking about me going and whether I should go or not. And he said something really quite profound in a way, was like my mum and dad, they never got a chance to take any risks because it got stripped away from him. He was 43 years old when he got cancer, so basically the same age I am. He said, we never got a chance to take any risks. We never got a chance to roll the dice. And he just said, go roll our dice. And that's really what I want my boys to see, is that I was somebody that had this abundance mindset, and Maverick's got a healthy interest in money right now, and I'm encouraging that, and I'm teaching him about money. Not that the money is the be all and end all, but it's not the enemy. It's you can have a good relationship with it. And I'd like them to see that I can take chances and I can fail. And I talk about failure a lot because my kids have both got the introvert tendencies that I had. They won't put their hand up in class. They wouldn't volunteer for football examples because they're shy. But I've realized with Maverick, he's so scared of making a mistake and looking silly. We had this conversation last night because he's got a spelling test today. And I lived my life like that till I was 27, 28 years old. Terrified of human beings, didn't want to speak on stage, didn't want to be on camera. Not because I didn't know my shit. I did know my shit at a certain stage. I just didn't want to look silly. I didn't want people to judge me. So I want them to know that that's okay, because people are always going to judge you anyway. If you ask them what I do for a living, they'll tell you that I work hard and I help people.
That's beautiful, man. That's so beautiful. And that's all they need to understand. They don't need to know the ins and outs of it at this age. One of the things that really broke me as a father was my daughter holding my hand one day, and she was looking up at me with just love and admiration. And I realized in that moment that one day my daughter is going to be with a man based on how I showed up. And one day my sons are going to be the type of man that I was growing up. And that broke me in two ways. It broke me in terms of like guilt and shame, because there's been many moments where I wasn't a great dad, but it also broke me because I knew that I had to step the fuck up. And I think as a father, when you can realize that the way you show up in business, the way you show up in your marriage or relationship, your children are watching the entire time.
Everything.
The way you deal with stress, the way you deal with them fucking up or making mistakes. Are you angry? Are they walking on eggshells? Or do you calmly say, hey, what can we learn from this? So anyone listening right now, if you have been a father who isn't present, father who's angry or triggered, that's okay.
Yeah.
What are you going to do about it today?
Yeah.
Right? Because we're not perfect.
Well, I remember I sent my mum and dad a video of Maverick when we first went to soccer, because he's been brainwashed.
Yeah. What's soccer?
And he just held onto my leg, and he wouldn't join. He wouldn't join in. He just like shy, like koala holding onto my leg. And I was like, oh, it's so frustrating, Mum. Like, he won't just go out there and just get involved. And she was like, that's what you were like constantly.
Boom.
And I'm like, so, I mean, he hasn't seen me doing that. So somehow in the DNA, I don't know the science of how that works.
Yeah.
Somehow he's got all those characteristics. But then I watch certain things, and I hold my fork in the right hand and my knife in the left, which I know is the opposite to most.
Yes.
And then Maverick does the same. And like, so what we normally do is, as parents, we go, oh, look how cute it is. Like, he does the same thing as me. And we pull out the nice things. What we don't realize, all the negative things that you don't want them to pick up, as you just said, they're picking that up 100% as well.
Yes.
So I almost feel that my business, my job now is a calling. And I know that sounds quite spiritual after everything that I've just said. I feel like this is a calling, and I have a duty and a responsibility to constantly step out of my own comfort zone, to inspire other people to do the same, including my kids. So they come and see me on stage. I get them on stage, and I allow them to know, hey, look, there's lots of people out there, but you're so safe. This is okay. So putting them in environments that I wasn't exposed to as early as possible, not to morph them into what I want, but to give them the best chance to reach whatever their potential might be. Like, they don't have to be in business, don't have to be in sales, do whatever they want.
Well, that's what the word empower means, right? You're empowering someone to reach a greater level, and they get to choose what they do with it. And I think you used that word trauma earlier. Not everyone has trauma, but everyone has patterns and conditioning from their childhood. And one of the most important roles we have as fathers and husbands and business owners is to lead the people around us. So they don't have the same bullshit that we had, right? Because we're all working through stuff.
Yeah.
Now, I want to talk about Swish, because I've loved this conversation. We've talked about life, family, and most people don't see the side of you. They see the guy on stage, kumbaya, right? I know that's not what you do. So what is Swish at its core? Like, how is it different from traditional sales training? Because we do think of sales as sleazy. What you do is so different, man. What is Swish at its core?
I like to think so. And I'm glad that that's observed from the outside, because that's been a real conscious effort over the years. Swish itself stands for selling with integrity and selling honestly. And it shouldn't even need to be branded that way. We shouldn't have to tell anybody to sell with integrity and sell honestly. It's almost weird by virtue of its name. For me, it's just the way it should be done, which is ethics and morals-based communication. That my job is to help people see something in themselves that they haven't seen in themselves by asking the right questions at the right time that might uncover a problem or challenge that they didn't even know they had. If at that stage I have a solution for them, I have a moral responsibility to articulate the value of it to get it into their hands. That is sales. It's just telling your truth better and asking great questions. The best salespeople in the world don't have the best answers. They have the best questions. So for us, we work with business owners, entrepreneurs, sales professionals. 32% of our members are female, and which is unheard of for a sales training company globally. And 42% of our members are not in a transactional sales role. So they are the main business owner, they're head of people and culture, HR, admin, reception, retentions, conflict resolution. They just speak to humans. Which fortunately now, and I've never seen it going this way, means that we can coach every single industry and sector and every department in the organization as well.
Yeah, that's such a powerful way of framing it. And I've got a lot of clients who are business owners, currently 180. Every single one gets to develop this skill set. So we'll put your links down below for everyone to check it out. I think really it comes down to communication. Communication is the key to connection. And what your business does, it's not just honesty and integrity, it's having great conversations with people to empower them to make decisions to make their life better. And as a business owner, you get to master that. Like, that's the number one skill.
You have to master that. You have to. But you want to build a great team of A players, you got to sell them on working at your organization.
100%.
You want to keep them when somebody poaches them and offers them more money. You can't afford to pay them more money. You got to sell them that. You want to we're going on a tour in 2 weeks' time. We've got different venues all over. I've got Anna, who's based remotely down in Melbourne. She's negotiating better rates for us with the venue hire, the AV teams, the brochure printing. Like, I'm not just selling, I'm selling and saving money on the front end when I'm spending.
Yes.
That's all communication skills. How can I build great relationships with people so that they want to look after us, for want of a better phrase? So yeah, the ripple effect for an organization is huge.
And it's such an important skill. I learned sales on a cruise ship. I was meant to be a personal trainer on a cruise ship. I was 20 years old, so 13 years ago. And we show up on the cruise ship. You're not a personal trainer. You run seminars. And we would sell this green algae for fat loss to Americans, right? Wow. And they were $2,000 to $3,000 packages, sometimes 10,000. I had no idea how to sell. But I was thrown into the fire and I had to figure it out. And that has made me not just so much money, but it's made me money ethically by changing lives and keeping families together. I want anyone listening right now to know you don't have to run a business like mine or yours to have to learn sales. Sales is life. It is everywhere. It is everything. And it gets you the freedom in your health, wealth, relationships.
On that, we would have hundreds and hundreds of testimonials or just private messages saying, "You saved my marriage." So right? We don't do anything to the degree that you do. We talk about personality profiling, emotional intelligence, regulation, and it crosses over quite nicely. And they're like, I changed the way I viewed my partner. I changed the way I spoke with my kids. How do I respond in anger? We do a lot of conflict resolution training, but you take that skill. You don't leave it at the office, or you don't leave it on the job site. You take it home. And that,
Yes.
like, I never ever thought I'd get a message saying we were so close and on the brink of divorce, and we're now 12 months later, and just so you know, we've got another kid on the way.
Yeah.
What? I thought I taught cold calling. Like, it's crazy, and you can't put a price on that.
Thank you for doing that, man. That's amazing. Like,
It was
you're
accidental.
changing lives.
But-
you
yeah.
are, but it is. But if you didn't put your voice out there, you wouldn't have saved that marriage. So by providing a solution to communicate properly, you're changing the world, and you really get to honor that, man.
Thank you.
What is one sales principle that every human, not just business people, should master?
How to get people in state.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
I said it earlier on, so all behaviors are state dependent. Then it doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter how good your product or service is. It doesn't matter how great your questions are, how good your answers are, how good your objection handling is, if the other person is in the wrong state. Everything will go by the wayside. So our ability to get people into what we call buying state as quickly as possible, so they're calm, they're comfortable, they feel open to your suggestions, and that's quite simple to do, right? Because we can just use lead-in phrases. We call it persuasion. Have you read Persuasion by Robert Cialdini?
Never heard of it.
So anybody listening, great book by Robert Cialdini. He wrote 2 really prominent books. One's called Influence, and one's called Persuasion, not Persuasion. And all persuasion is the words you say before the words you say can impact how those words are heard. So I can just say things like, before we begin, what you've just done is go, okay, we haven't begun just yet, so I'll just relax for a second.
It's framing.
It's a frame. It's a pre-frame, right? Phil M. Jones has got some great ones. Another great book called Exactly What Words to Say, where he'll say, this is probably not for you, but...
Oh, so good.
And then you go, don't tell me what's for me. I'll tell you what's for me. But instantly now you're curious. I don't know if this is going to be, it's probably a little bit lower level than what you're used to. I'll share it with you anyway.
Sure.
And you're like, lower level, what? Like,
Yeah.
I'll tell you what level it's at.
I thought you were actually
exactly,
going to...
you're
you
in.
just got me.
You were
That's
in.
great. I was
so-
like, what is he talking about? I didn't realize you were using an example.
So it draws in curiosity.
Yeah.
And they're just one-liners that set up the next words. Whereas a lot of people, they'll do this. They'll say, so what I'll do now, I'll show you our products and show you how it works. Instead of going, hey, this is probably not going to be for you, but if it would help you, I can show you our products and services, and then you can go away and make an educated decision on what would be right for you. And what I said in there was you can go away and make an educated decision on it. Not you can then make an educated decision. What I've just done is take all the pressure off by what we call selling the exit. And a lot of sales coaches will talk about selling the exit.
Yeah.
So like you can take it. Take all the information, go away, have a thing, and if you like it, you do. If you don't, no big deal. Just let me know either way so we can draw a line in the sand. That doesn't mean they're not going to move forward on that particular conversation. They still will sign up. What I've done is get you in the right state to receive my next information, which when you do the next parts right, it's going to be heard. And that's really important.
And these are simply sentences, frames, and forms of language. You know, one that I use often on my calls is, look, we're going to have a conversation today. No pressure. We'll figure out if and how we could potentially help you, as opposed to, this is going to work for you. You're going to need to do it.
So it's neutral.
It's nuanced, isn't it?
It's
very nuanced.
Well, what a lot of people do is they have absolute language at the front when they need neutral language at the front and absolute language at the back. So I would say in the absence of intelligence, you must stay neutral. So maybe potentially, hopefully, probably, I mean, we've been doing this for 11 years, so it'd be nice, but I'm not sure just yet. I'll ask you some questions.
Amazing.
But even a pre-frame or a state changer, a really, really practical one that everyone will understand. Through COVID, the rise of aggression in customer service, bus drivers, train drivers, delivery drivers, Uber drivers, how did they stop that customer aggression? What they did was humanize the person that the aggressor was speaking to. What I mean by that was, look at Domino's Pizza. You now order a Domino's, you know who's delivering it, you know what their favorite pizza is, you know what football club they support. So when they're 5 minutes late, you don't go, Tony, you go, oh no, he's a Bronco. Like, he likes pineapple on pizza. I'll actually give him some abuse about that instead. they actually reduced the amount of aggression they had towards people. Why? Because they created a little bio and they made it human. So we believe in what we call the 300% rule of value, which is the golden thread that kind of goes through all of our training, and it's based on 3 verticals: MCP, myself, company, product. And we are always selling me, the company, and the product, but the myself, they're all equally important, but that has to come first. So before we have a sales interaction with anybody, a lead comes in, there will be automated emails and triggers that go out, and part of that will be to go, hey, this is Tony, he's been in the industry for this amount of years, he's helped this amount of people, but most importantly, he's a dad as well, and he's got this, that, and the other. And there's a picture of you. If you want, you can do a video. Just adding that personal touch changes the way they come into that next interaction.
That's so powerful. And on the idea of framing, a great one that most people understand is when your partner says we need to talk, right? That's a frame. If you can use different language, aka communicate differently, you can sell the solution better.
Yeah.
This has been such an impactful conversation. I have one final question for you, but before I ask it, where can the listeners find your events, your socials? Where can we find you, and what do you recommend they do?
I'm pretty active across all socials: LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, at Ryan Tuckwood Official. SwishSalesCoaching.com is the website. We have events all year, so it depends when this is going out. We've got a tour in June, and we've got a boot camp that we do twice a year, 3-day boot camp, and then we are the founders of the SwishCon, which is the biggest open source sales event in Australia. That's usually around October, November each year as well.
Amazing. And anyone listening, we will drop all those links down below, so please go check them out. If you are a business owner, an entrepreneur, a hard worker, or just a family man who wants better relationships, go and check the content out down below. Now, I have one final question for you, and it's a simple one. What would you recommend as the number one piece of advice you've ever been given to have a fulfilled life?
To have a fulfilled life.
Yeah, just to wake up and be like, fuck, I love my life. Because that's very new for me, by the way. I didn't live that way for 32 years, and now I truly live it. But I want to hear your perspective on how to get there.
I don't know if this was the person that I'm going to say, but I'll name them anyway. It might have been Harry Singer. Was talking about the light me up moments. Like, what lights you up? And document those things. So is it music? Is it, for me, the top 2 came out as sunlight and solitude. So I love being in the sun. I love being by myself, which sounds pretty sad.
It sounds amazing.
I like being the best dressed person in a room by myself. So sunlight and solitude. Music. Is it a feel of a particular rug? Whatever it may be. Is it a smell? And how can you intentionally build those light me up moments into every single day? Not once a week, not once a month. I look back at living in England, and we talked about seasonal disorder or whatever it was called. SAD. I think the acronym's SAD. And in England, you live your life for your 2 weeks in Spain every year. You live 50 weeks of the year depressed, and then you cannot wait to go to Magaluf or Benidorm, and people in England that listen to this know exactly what I mean. And you just go on the lash, and you get there, you're excited, you have 2 weeks, you spend the first 10 days loving it, and then the last 4 days just depressed because you're going home in a few days' time. And I wanted to create a life that I didn't need to escape. And when I moved over here, I'd done that, and then I lost it again. And it wasn't until I realized that I can't be waiting even 12 weeks for a holiday. I can't be waiting 12 weeks for a fulfillment or to tick a box for me. It needs to be daily light me up moments. So I have little buffers in my day where I need to get that sunlight. That refuels me. I need to be by myself at certain points. So when am I by myself? So build out that list and ask yourself, can I just sprinkle 1 or 2 of them into every single day of my life so that I find that daily fulfillment as well? Amazing
advice. Brother, it's been an absolute honor. Hopefully we'll see a lot of the listeners at one of your events, and thank you so much for coming in today.
Thanks for having me, mate. Enjoyed that.
If you want to actually take this framework that I shared and apply it to your life, it's part of our Empowered Man Armory and our app that we've spent almost 250 grand on. If you want access to a powerful system where you can use this reframe system I just shared with you every single day, then find me on Instagram at Tony Empowered Man, TONIEMPOWEREDMAN. I'll put the link down below as well. Send me a DM saying reframe, and I'll give you this exact framework as well as early access to the Empowered Man app when it launches.